Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This evening's reciters are Jai Sri Radha Devi Dasi Mataji, who will be reciting in Sanskrit, and Prananath Prabhuji, who will be reciting in English. Canto 3, Chapter 26, verses 1 to 15. Radha Devi Mataji, whenever you're ready, please start with the 3 invocations.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Atate Sampravaksyami Tattvanam Lakshanam Pritak Yat Viditva Vimuchyeta Purusha Prakritertinahi.
The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued, My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature.
Text 2. Nanam Nishraya Sarthaya Purushasya Padarshanam Yat Ahur Varnaye Tatte Ritaye Granti Vedanam.
Knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut.
Text 3. Anatir Atma Purusho Nirguna Prakrite Paraha Pratyaktama Swayam Jyotir Vishvam Yena Samanvitam.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul, and he has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because he is self-effulgent, and by his self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained.
Text 4. Sa esha prakritim sukshmam devim gunamayim vipuhu yatricha yaiva bhogatam abhyapadyata lilaya.
As his pastime, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy, which is invested with 3 material modes of nature and which is related with Vishnu.
Text 5. Guner vichitra shrichatim sarupa prakritim prajaha vilokya mumuhe satyaha sa iha gnana guhaya.
Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities, and the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge-covering feature of the illusory energy.
Text 6. Evam para vidyanena kartrutvam prakrite puman karmasu kriyamaneshu guneratmani manyate.
Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus, actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself.
Text 7. Tat asya samshitir bandha paratantriyam chatat kritam bhavatya kartur ishasya sakshino nivritatmanaha.
Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditional life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by conditional life.
Text 8. Karya karana kartrutve karanam prakritim vituhu bhoktrutve sukha dukhanam purusham prakrite param.
The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself.
Text 9. Devahutiruvacha prakrite purushasyapi lakshanam purushottama bruhi karannayor asya sata satchatyat atmakam.
Devahuti said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energies. For both of these are the causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation.
Text 10. Shri Bhagavan Yat Tatri Gunam Avyaktam Nityam Satasatatmakam Pradhanam Prakritim Prahur Avishesham Visheshavat.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called pradhana. It is called prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence.
Text 11. Panchapi Brahma Chaturpi Tashapistatha Etach Shatikam Kanam Pradhanikam Vituhu.
The aggregate elements, namely the five gross elements, the five subtle elements, the four internal senses, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five outward organs of action, are known as the pradhana.
Text 12. Mahabhutani Panchaiva Pura Nirmarunnabaha Tatmatrani Tatavanti Gandhadini Matani Me.
There are five gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also five subtle elements, smell, taste, color, touch, and sound.
Text 13. Indriyani Dasha Shotram Tvaktruk Nashikaha Vakarau Charanau Metram Payur Dashama Uchyate.
The senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, and the active organs for speaking, working, traveling, generating, and evacuating.
Text 14. Mano buddhir ahankarash chittam ityantar atmakam chaturta lakshyate vedo vritya lakshana rupaya.
The internal subtle senses are experienced as having four aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by different functions, since they represent different characteristics.
Text 15. Etavan eva sankyato brahmana sagunasyaha sanniveshamaya prokto yakala panchavim shakaha.
All these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as the 25th element.
Thank you, Mataji Prabhuji, for your beautiful recitations today.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the beautiful recitations, Mataji and Prabhuji. So is Srilalita Susevini Mataji ready to facilitate? Please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for beautifully reciting Mataji and Prabhuji. So we are going to discuss Canto 3, Chapter 26, verses 6 to 8. And before we do that, we'll do some prayers, and I will share my screen with you. Yeah, I hope you can see it. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Mataji, we can. Thank you.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेष्व भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदन्तस्थो य भद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम् ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः मुखं करोति वचलं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातम् अहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam 3.26.1, which is, we already know that we have that Kapila Muni has arrived, has appeared, and he is now actually imparting knowledge and wisdom and imparting knowledge about Shankhya philosophy to his mother, Devahuti. And now in this particular chapter, he's instructing about the 6 fundamental principles of material nature. As we know that Shankhya philosophy is also about devotional service, but Shankhya philosophy is more, okay, in Bhagavad Gita, we know about, we get to know about devotional service. We get to know about words of Krishna, like who is God and what does God say, what is the guide of life, how to live our life. All those things are summed up in Bhagavad Gita in those 45 minutes in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But the Bhagavatam actually tells us about about the dealings between Krishna and his devotees, and so many moral stories and values are imbibed in Bhagavatam, and it is not non-different from Krishna's own body. And why is it said so? Because it glorifies Lord, it glorifies Lord's devotees and his pastimes, so it becomes even more relishable. So because Bhagavad Gita tells us about the song and the words of the Lord and the instructions of the Lord, now we have to build a higher relationship, and we have to build our faith in scriptures and faith in Krishna and his words, so that we can think about him even with more faith, and we can understand practically how to apply Bhagavad Gita in our life. So Sankhya philosophy actually tells us not just the knowledge, but it also tells us scientifically the science of God realization or science of self-realization, science of spirituality, a science of Krishna consciousness, science of bhakti is actually, in simple words, is Sankhya philosophy, because it tells us about the different modes of material nature. It tells us about different the elements of material nature, how material nature is formed, how is our body formed, and how do we interact with this material nature, and how Krishna has created these elements for us, for this material world to exist. So it tells us about the analytical study of devotional service, and tells us, and it is very important for us to realize the knowledge and to actually before doing anything, before doing the devotional service, we should actually know about the basics also, like how did we come into existence, how do we deal with the with the prakriti and the material mode. So that's why it is important for us to know about that, and it gives us rational, it rationalizes, and we can argue the Mayavadis also. So that's why Shankar philosophy, Lord appeared as Kapil Muni, and he imparted this knowledge about devotional service, but analytically, how analytically we can see this God realization, we can realize. So I just wanted to sum up a little bit. What is this 6 fundamental principles of material nature we in this chapter is about. So first verse I will recite again. Hare Krishna. श्रीभगवानुवाच अथ ते सम्प्रवक्ष्यामि तत्त्वानां लक्षणं पृथक् यद्विदित्वा विमुच्येत पुरुषः प्राकृतैर्गुणैः. श्रीभगवानुवाच अथ ते सम्प्रवक्ष्यामि तत्त्वानां लक्षणं पृथक् यद्विदित्वा विमुच्येत पुरुषः प्राकृतैर्गुणैः. Translations. The personality of Godhead, Kapila continued, my dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. Purport. Would anyone like to volunteer to read? When we read, we remember actually, and we use our senses. Anyone wants to recite this and read this purport?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
It's stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, only through devotional service. Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. It's stated in the Bhagavatam, the object of devotional service is Mam, Krishna. And as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form, with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions, and his incarnations. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Krishna. Sankhya philosophy is specially meant for persons who are conditioned by this material world. It is generally understood by the parampara system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. The same assertion is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Tato mam tatvato gnatva. By understanding the Lord according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is also explained here. By understanding the science of devotional service in Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The eternal self, after becoming freed from the spell of material nature, becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. As long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, there is no chance of his being freed from the influence of nature's material modes. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically, as explained in the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapila Dev. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Oh, sorry. So we were doing. Thank you for reading that. Actually, we are doing 6. So it's good that we did the first one. It's because it will give us the summary of it. So 6th one is here. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.26.6. एवं प्रभाभिध्यानेन कर्तव्यं प्रकृतेर्पुमान् कर्मसु क्रियमाणेषु गुणैरात्मनि मन्यते. Translation: because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus, actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. Purport: the forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of disease and has become mad, or a man haunted by ghosts who acts without control and yet thinks himself to be in control. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned soul becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of the material energy is accepted by the conditioned souls as self-actuated. Actually, the soul is in his pure state of existence should be in Krishna consciousness. When a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be acting in material consciousness. Consciousness cannot be killed, for the symptom of living entity is consciousness. The material consciousness simply has to be purified. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna or the Supreme Lord as master, and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. 3.26.7 Tad asya samshrutirbandhah paratantrayam cha tatkrutam bhavyatya akartur ishyasya sakshino nirvartatmanaha. Translation: material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by conditional life. Purport: Mataji, anyone voluntarily wants to read it?
Yes, please, Mataji, may I?
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you very much. Purport: the Mayavadi philosopher, who does not differentiate between the Supreme Spirit and the individual spirit, says that the conditional existence of the living entity is his lila or pastime. But the word pastime implies employment in the activities of the Lord. The Mayavadis misuse the word and say that even if the living entity has become a stool-eating hog, he is also enjoying his pastimes. This is most dangerous interpretation. Actually, the Supreme Lord is the leader and maintainer of all living entities. His pastimes are transcendental to any material activity. Such pastimes of the Lord cannot be dragged to the level of the conditional activities of the living entities. In conditional life, the living entity actually remains as if a captive in the hands of material energy. Whatever the material energy dictates, the conditioned soul does. He has no responsibility. He is simply the witness of the action, but he is forced to act in that way due to his offense in his eternal relationship with Krishna. Lord Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita that Maya, his material energy, is so forceful that it is insurmountable. But if a living entity simply understands that his constitutional position is to serve Krishna, then he tries to act on this principle. Then, however conditioned he may be, the influence of Maya immediately vanishes. This is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Krishna takes charge of anyone who surrenders to him in helplessness, and thus the influence of Maya or conditional life is removed. The spirit soul is actually Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. Under the clutches of Maya, however, he suffers from continued birth, death, disease, and old age. One has to be serious to cure this condition of material existence and transfer himself to Krishna consciousness, for thus his long suffering may be mitigated without difficulty. In summary, the suffering of the conditioned soul is due to his attachment to material nature. This attachment should thus be transferred from matter to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Beautifully read. Thank you. 3.26.8 Karya-karana-kartritve karanam prakritim viduhu bhoktritve sukha-dukkhanam purusham prakritehi param. Translation and purport. The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that when the Lord descends to this material world, he comes as a person by his own energy, Atma Maya. He is not forced by any superior energy. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastime or Leela. But here it is clearly stated that the conditioned soul is forced to take a certain type of body and senses under the three modes of material nature. That body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, a conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. But when there are bodily reactions as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. If he so desires, the spirit soul can change this conditioned life of dualities by choosing to serve Krishna. The living entity is the cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness. When he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness, a suitable body is offered to him by the internal potency, the spiritual energy of the Lord, and when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. Thus, if it is his free choice to accept a spiritual body or a material body, but once the body is accepted, he has to enjoy or suffer the consequences. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that the living entity enjoy his pastimes by accepting the body of a hog. This theory is not acceptable. However, because the word pastime implies voluntary acceptance for enjoyment, therefore this interpretation is most misleading. When there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. The Lord's pastime and the conditioned living entity's acceptance of karmic reaction are not on the same level. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadah Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Guroho Shri Yutpadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagan Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vamcha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So let's go back to the fundamental principles of the material nature that Kapil Muni is explaining to his mother. He's saying, the personality of Godhead Kapila continued, my dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. So that is why we read Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is why we read the instructions. The instruction of the Kapil Muni is here in the first instruction in the Srimad Bhagavatam in form of Kapil Muni. A Lord has appeared and he's now telling us about Shankya philosophy. As the purport also said, Prabhupada said that now we know in Bhagavad Gita about the devotional service, but we want to we want to analyze it. We want to study scientifically. The science of devotional service is Shankya philosophy. So Kapil Muni is doing that, and through that he's also described. He's going to describe the categories of absolute truth. So there's so many incarnations, so many expansions. There's so many avatars and his forms and his energies, internal and external energy, superior and inferior energy. He's going to explain that so that we can understand, and we for future generation also, there is no question in our mind, no doubt in our mind who is Lord, because sometimes even if you're doing devotional service, doubts will start coming in our mind if we're not reading regularly, especially if we're not reading on a regular basis. The doubts will come in the life. It will put challenges on us. We'll go through so many problems, and then we'll say that I'm chanting, I'm doing everything, I'm following 4 regulatory principle, I'm going to the temple. Why still so many doubts are coming in my mind? Why I'm becoming so angry these days? Because we are not studying the scriptures, and especially this chapter and this canto, or especially this philosophy of Shankya philosophy. When we read about the glory, more specifically the concept of a material world, modes of material nature, how Lord created it, we actually go into the analytical study of it, and then we realize that actually it's not me who is controlling the situation, it is the Lord. It is look at the Lord, look at how you would be able to see Lord everywhere when you will get to know about his energies and these elements that he created himself. And we will not look at them as something troublesome, because we will look at it as Lord's energy. So that's why it's important to know about these categories and these creations and these different analytical study about the Lord, because knowing them, we can actually release ourselves from the influence of the modes of material nature, because we will know who is the controller of these modes, who's the controller of who created these. Lord created these, and for that reminder, we have to come back and read Shankya philosophy. We have to come back and read what Kapil Muni said. Then, knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you, which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. So, in Bhagavad Gita, there is mention of a perverted reflection of a tree, mention of the spiritual and material world. Like, spiritual world is the real actual tree, and and the material world is actually the reflection of that tree, and the tree itself is actually, the roots of the tree are upside down. So the roots are on the top, and the tree grows downward. So it's like that. So it's not like the tree that we see. So how are we going to, if there's a picture, I would have shown you the picture of in Bhagavad Gita, there's a picture also, and it's very beautifully shown that how we get entangled in the branches of this material entanglement. And the branches could be of anything. It could be attachment to social status, it could be attachment to a family member, it could be attachment to a job, or to a relation, or to a false ego. It could be any kind of attachment, and those are the branches of that tree. Because like I said, so we need to cut off the branch. Until or unless the branches and these knots are of attachment are not cut, we will be entangled. And that's why it is said we are entangled in this material world, because of a false identity that we have, that this world is permanent. So if we study the scriptures, and if we gain knowledge about these material elements and how they interact, we will actually be released from this knot. But we have to come back again and again and revise our knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul, and He has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because He is self-effulgent, and by His self-effulgence luster, the entire creation is maintained. So very beautiful analogy about this is that if you look at the sun, sun's example I'll give later on for another thing. But if we look at the light around us, whatever light we see, suppose in this room, in your rooms, there'll be some light. So actually that light is limited. That light is limited to that room, right? So that is like a living entity. Like we are like that. We are limited in quantity, right? But Supreme Personality of Godhead is like a sun. His light, a sun's light, is not restricted to a room or two rooms or one building. A sun's light is effulgent, and it goes throughout the whole universe. It is the light that actually enlightens and radiates everywhere. So Krishna is, and moreover, one more thing is that whatever light, the source of light that we see around us, whatever source we see, it actually comes from Krishna. How? The light that we see around us, actually, how it comes, the moonlight, you would say, moon or sunlight. The moon's light is actually a reflection of sun. The sun, it is actually the sun's light, and the reflection comes from the moon, and hence we can see things at night time. So moon's light is also coming from the sun, right? And where is sun's light coming from? So sun's light is actually, it is said that sunlight comes from the effulgence of Brahmajyoti. Brahmajyoti. So where is now Brahmajyoti coming from? It is a spiritual word actually, Brahmajyoti, yeah? Jyoti of the Brahman. So Brahmajyoti is actually coming from the effulgence of Krishna's body. That is Brahmajyoti. So ultimately, the source of all the light around us is Krishna. And it is also said that in the higher planetary systems or in the spiritual world, we don't actually need any light, because there is effulgence from the body of Krishna. Krishna's body is so effulgent, there is no day, night, or these changing of day and night, because Krishna's body itself is enough to give light, and there is no electricity there. They don't need anything. There is no night. And that effulgence is then the sunlight that we see, and the sunlight's reflection is the moonlight, and whatever light we see around us, we get it through the rays of the sun. So Krishna is the ultimate source of everything that we see. And even the food, Bhagavad Gita says, in Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned that the food gets nourishment from the moonlight. Some of the fruits, vegetables get the nourishment from moonlight, and some of the vegetation is due to sunlight. So Krishna is actually doing, if we look at everything around us, we will see that everything is organized. He is maintaining the material world so beautifully. And when we realize these things, we read Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, these scriptures, we become enlightened. And then we will, hence, after at certain stage, we will be realizing these things. It's important to read and know about them and to attain knowledge. But Vijnana, to make it Vijnana, we have to practice it. We have to constantly practice and serve our Guru and serve the Vaishnavas. And then this knowledge is actually revealed in our heart when we become sincere. But the first step is to obviously to gain knowledge also, to build up our faith. As his pastimes, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy, which is invested with the three modes of nature, which is related to Vishnu. So we all know that Krishna, if you don't know, then let me explain it to you again, that Krishna actually is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but his first expansion is Balaram, right? Which is also known as, Balaram is also Nityananda Prabhu, and Balaram is also his brother. And Balaram is actually the source of all the spiritual knowledge, all the knowledge. He is the guru. He is the ultimate guru of everyone. Whatever knowledge we have comes from Balaram, spiritual knowledge. He is the guru, ultimate guru. And from Balaram comes four quadruples. That is Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Shankarsna, and Vasudeva. These are four forms of that again comes. And from the first Shankarsna comes first Narayan. That we say Narayan, that comes from first Shankarsna. And from Narayan again comes four quadruples of Vasudev, Shankarsna, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from that second Shankarsna comes a Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is also Karanodaya Kashyaya Vishnu, because he is the Karan, he is the cause of all the cosmic manifestation. He is the first form of Vishnu. And that Vishnu lies on the Karan ocean. And that Vishnu it actually glances over the material Mahat Tattva, and he glances over the material nature and he injects it with three things. What he injects it with, he doesn't have to do it mechanically like we do. His just glances itself enough. What he do while glancing, he injects material nature with three things. First is jivas, living entities, us. Then their consciousness, the karma, the modes of material nature, the consciousness, karma, and the time. So time is not just the time that we know, mechanical time. There is a designer of time also, time in cosmic time. So if we see a watch, watch in our room, we actually follow that. We follow the time, but there is a designer behind it, isn't it? There's someone who designed that in your rooms, but whenever you see that it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you know that someone created that, but we follow that, right? In the same way, the cosmic time is also created by a designer, and the ultimate designer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead of that time. He is the designer of that time. And what time does? It mixes the modes of material nature, gunas, the ignorance, passion, and goodness. The time mixes that. And because of modes of material nature and interaction of modes of material nature, we identify ourselves as body, as a female, male, young, old, tree, or whatever bodies we've got. We identify ourselves as those living entities or those bodies. We forget, and we are illusioned by Krishna's illusory energy. Our eyes are actually covered, so we are not actually able to see this realm of spirituality, the dimensions. We can't see those dimensions, even if there are demigods moving around us or something. We can't see that because we haven't got that vision, and we are illusioned by the material nature. It's covered, and we are constantly under these three modes of material nature. So this is what Shankya philosophy is all about. That how does all these ignorance comes. But one thing to remember is that time is Maya is illusion, material nature. It is illusion, but it is not. It is not. We can't say that it doesn't exist, or it is temporary. We can say that it is temporary, but we can't say that it is zero or nil. So it has a source substance, but it is temporary. The material energy is illusory, but it is temporary. And the spiritual energy and consciousness is permanent. That is the soul. So because of his forgetfulness, the conditioned living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his fields of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. Yeah, because we start identifying ours. We forget, even after doing devotional service, sometimes we forget the fact that we are not the controllers. Just like someone who panics, like someone is haunted by a ghost, he panics and he becomes so anxious and he thinks that he's controlling everything and everything is out of his control. But he is not. He's just acting out of those modes and acting out of those those bodily reactions. But actually, he's not the controller. Yet he thinks himself to be in control. And the forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who's under influence of a disease and has become mad. So, in the same way, we think, or maybe we feel that certain situations in our life challenges comes, and we feel that we are the ones who can control this, or we are the ones, because of me this happened, I can control this situation, I can control this, I can lord it over, all those things. You must have read those in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada mentions again and again. But actually, we are doing our duties. We are duties to perform our duties, but leave the the results, or we can say the sanction, to the Lord, because He is the ultimate controller. So Mahavishnu, like I said, Karanada Kashaya Vishnu, He is the creator of everything, of this glancing over the material nature and injecting with jivas. So what happens is that time has also two qualities. Like I told about time has two qualities, that it is transformative also, and it is destructive also. So transformative in the sense that it can control the three modes of material nature. Yeah. And mixes the three modes of material nature. And destructive in the sense that at the time of annihilation and destruction of this universe, of everything, we go back to Krishna. We go back to Mahavishnu. We go back to that divine form and in a dormant form. But our consciousness as karmas are stored in that body. And then again, when the creation happens, we come out of the previous consciousness and now karmas, and then we are given the bodies. So, yeah, it's all controlled by the Lord. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned souls become absorbed in material consciousness. We completely forget. If in Bhagavatam it is said that when a fetus is in the womb of the mother, he is actually upside down. His head is on the bottom, and his legs are on he's upside down, and he's constantly begging in 9 months, and his hands are also folded. If we see in the ultrasound, he's constantly begging that I want to come out of this this hellish situation where I'm stuck, Krishna. I'm stuck, Lord. There is pee, there is pus, there is stool, and there is so much suffocation and darkness in this area. Please get me out of this hell. He says that he actually pleads to the Lord to get him out of it. And he said, then promises that he remembers his past lives also in karma. And he says, I will not repeat the same mistakes. This time I will go back. This time I will remember you, and I will come back for sure. But as soon as he comes out of the world, he starts identifying, he sees things around him, he touches things, and he starts, how like a child do. He wants to know what it is, what is it. And then we interact with this material world and the three modes of material nature, and we are again illusioned, and we become conditioned again, and we forget that we promised the Lord that this time I will not repeat the same thing, but we do. But if we are fortunate enough and we've done some bhakti in the past life, Krishna says, his promises, that he will give us the knowledge, and he will give us the intelligence and remembrance. He will make us remember our previous activities, devotional service, and we start. And he sends a guru also when we are really sincere. So that's a good thing. Yeah, so Prabhupada is saying when a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he's understood to be acting in material consciousness. So the other day I was reading something, and in one of the purports of Krishna, I think that book was Science of Self-Realization, and Krishna said that, Prabhupada said in the purport that, you know, about the concept about reincarnation. Why do we reincarnate? So some people argue that there is no reincarnation, there's only one life, but then we can also ask them that why someone is born as a very disabled person, maybe blind or some kind of disability, or in a poor family, while someone is born very rich and with everything available. Why would God do such inequality? Why would God judge someone and just give less to someone and more to someone, and why would he discriminate? So the answer lies there, that it's all dependent on our past karma. There is reincarnation, but why do reincarnation happen? Because our propensity to enjoy and the desires don't end, and to fulfill the desires we are given the bodies. And antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavan yati nastyatra samshaya bahunam janmanamante jnanavam mam prapadyate vasudevam sarvam niti ya sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births, 83 lakh thousand species, 83 lakh species, sorry, I forgot the number. After many births, we get this human body. We have to go through insects, so we have to go through so many other forms, and then we get this human body. And if we don't use our free will properly, we may end up into something else, and then make some mistakes, and do four kinds of sinful activities, four kind of activities that we do, and four kind of anarthas that we do, that I mentioned in Nectar of Devotion also. So those mistakes we will make, and then if there is no God consciousness, we will fall into the trap and we'll be reborn again, because the desires didn't fulfill, or there is some pending karma remaining. So that consciousness is material consciousness completely. But if we come to Krishna consciousness, luckily or fortunately, and we start chanting, Prabhupada says in the purport that we can even overcome our karma. We can even break this karmic cycle. We can even purify our past, whatever sins we've done. Krishna doesn't care about that. He himself says in the end of Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha, that I'll forgive you. Just surrender unto me at this moment. So Krishna consciousness, when person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is just wasting his time. And consciousness, we're always conscious. We are always conscious. It is just transformed. Energy is always transformed. Energy cannot be destroyed. In the same way, consciousness cannot be destroyed. It remains. And as soon as the souls come out of the body, the consciousness goes away, and the person is said that he's dead. He's no more, because the consciousness is not there anymore. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna as the Supreme Lord, as Master, and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to spiritual Krishna consciousness. Give me a second. Yes, the material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. So Prabhupada says in the purport also that, and Prabhupada said that these conditioned souls, who are these conditioned souls actually? These conditioned souls, from time immemorial, there is no trace of the time when some of the souls, because we all come from spiritual world, we all come from, we were the associates, and we were living in spiritual world only, but we cannot trace back to the time when some of the living entities and some of these souls, they became envious of the God, of the Lord, and they wanted to enjoy independently. They had this rebellious attitude that we want our own desires, we want our own karma to work in its own way. We want our own bodies, we want material bodies, we want to enjoy separately from the Lord. So because of those rebellious souls, some of those rebellious souls, we are also among them, that's why we're here. They wanted to enjoy independently, and then Lord created, for such rebellious souls, Lord had to create this material world. It's just compared to compared to, we would say that, okay, in this government is handling everything in this country or any other country, then why do we need, when there are government laws, why do we still need state laws, or why do we still need state prisons, and why do we still need police? Why do we need the prisons for them, and when they do some misconduct and they are sent to the court and so things happen? Why? Because we still have to, there are some people always in every state also who will be rebellious and who will not abide by the laws of the government. In the same way, Krishna has created some laws for our benefit, because he's created this world, so he has the right, he created the laws. But some of the rebellious souls, conditioned souls, they did not want to follow those, and they wanted to enjoy independently. So Krishna created this material world, and this is kind of a prison actually, for them to come and taste for themselves, see for themselves, and then actually treat them in the way like a patient is treated in the hospital. In the same way, we are sent here, we are also the prisoners, and we are then given freedom here to act according to our own, we think we have got this minute independence, and then we don't get actually satisfied even after doing lots of everything possible. We make so many plans for our own life, but then we still feel that no, this is not what I wanted, I want something else. And like that, the whole whole time just gets quickly, it passes away quickly. And then at some point we realize that this is temporary world, this is not a permanent place, it's just a prison house for me to learn from my mistakes that no, this is not something that I would do again. I don't want to repeat this mistake. And this prison house is created for us. But we should also remember that the rules in a prison house, the rules are not the same for the lawmaker and for the prisoner. The prisoner has to is a prisoner, but we don't follow this rule. Same rules are not followed by the lawmaker. They're not applied to the lawmaker because he made the laws. So in the same way, Krishna, when he even descends to this material world, he takes a material form. He descends in a body, but the rules doesn't follow. He doesn't have to follow the rules and regulations. He created those rules. So we should not compare some of the Mayavadis. Prabhupada repeatedly mentions about the Mayavadis that they say that the activities that we do are also leelas. But Prabhupada is strictly saying, and he's again and again saying and disputing Mayavadis that no, only Leela is what Krishna does, because his Leelas, there's a reason behind his activities. He doesn't do anything just whimsically or just out of, there is a reason why he does something, and we don't know his great plans. His activities are Leelas because they give pleasure. When we hear the pastimes of Lord, they give pleasure to the ear. They purify us, our existence, and they make us very, you would feel that some kind of warmth. But when we we cannot compare our lives as Leelas as Lord's life is. The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. Yeah. This is understood by the learned man. The feelings of happiness, distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by spirit soul himself. So sometimes we feel that this person did that person around us. We keep blaming our circumstances. We keep blaming people around us. But then we don't realize that whatever we go through is actually desired by our soul some time ago, or it was desired by us. We desired something and we got entangled, and then these are the reactions that are coming due to that material nature. Frustrating, always getting frustrating, not coming to an end. So because we identify ourselves as I'm big, I'm small, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm the body, and it's easy to say. In Bhagavad Gita, we read again and again that we are not the bodies, we are the souls. But to realize this, we have to go through Krishna put us through some tests, and Krishna put us through some challenges. That, okay, you are reading these, you are coming to this path, let me put some tests on your way. Let me put some challenges. And then he tests our knowledge, that whatever knowledge we're gaining from the scriptures, are we actually realizing it? He will make sure that we realize it through the experiences. And that knowledge or surrender to the Lord in helpless situation, that gives us real knowledge, which is Vijnana. And real knowledge is nothing but to know that we are parts and parcel of the Lord, and we are not here to enjoy. We are here to serve the Lord, and that will give us real satisfaction, because that is our real position. So Prabhupada says in the purport, the living entity is the cause of his own suffering, but he is also the cause of his eternal happiness. When he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness, a suitable body is offered to him by the internal potency, the spiritual energy of the Lord. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. So when we want to what kind of satisfaction we want, Krishna will provide that kind of body. It can be an animal body also. We like sleeping more, we become a bear. We like eating more, we will be, will become something like that. If we, some of the souls become monkeys, some of the souls become trees, based on their desires and on their engagements in this life. But when we engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness, actually we get a suitable body to finish our task, to finish our bhakti also. I mean, not finish, but to continue our bhakti. A suitable body is offered. So there is also spiritual body, there is also material body. We also get a spiritual body, and we can also get a material body based on our desires and and patterns. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that living entity enjoys his pastimes by accepting the body of a hog. This theory is not acceptable. Yes, the pastimes only apply for the beautiful nectarian leelas of the Lord. When there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. The Lord's pastime and the conditioned living entities' acceptance of karmic reaction are not on the same level. See, so what we are going through is a karmic reaction. Just one analogy I wanted to give you is that of Krishna's position and our position, that suppose there is a projector. So projector will be the one who is controlling the screen that is in front of the projector. So there is a projector, there's a screen, and there is a movie going on. So the projector in this scenario is Krishna. The screen that we see in front of us is material nature. And the film is our karma, and the pictures that we see are karma, and the movie that we see is our life. So that is how it is like. Krishna is the projector. If we stop the projector, the whole movie finishes, the movie ends. So Krishna is controlling it. If he wants to finish it off, he can just click the button, and then the movie is finished. So like that, he's divine consciousness within all of us. So yeah, there's a lot of concepts about these modes of material nature, how they interact, and it's always Prabhupada repeatedly says in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 18 also, in chapter 14 also, 3 modes of material nature, that we should always constantly try to raise ourselves to the higher modes, at least to the mode of goodness, at least to the mode of goodness, so that we can understand, and because we can only understand Krishna in that mode, in higher mode of goodness. And how we can raise ourselves to the mode of goodness? When we sleep, regulate our sleep, regulate our eating, regulate our whole life. That is like Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti that we're doing, regulated life in Krishna consciousness. It helps us to maintain that mode of goodness, and actually reading the scriptures also. This will help us to maintain the mode of goodness. And ultimately, when we get blessings of the Vaishnavas also, and when we're hearing regularly, we're following everything nicely, and that mood changes, the chanting also changes, it becomes more spontaneous, and then we can actually raise ourselves to the Shuddha Sattva, which is pure goodness, and ultimately transcendental, when we're not actually under control of any modes. So that position is actually Krishna's position. He's not in control of any modes. So Krishna's energy is under him. It's Krishna's energy, material energy, it is under him. But we should also understand that there is a war. We are also part of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna, but Krishna's energy is against us. So this energy is Maya, and Maya is always trying to test us. You know, it's her job is to test our devotion and to see how much we want to go back, how much we want to enjoy and stay here. So she will give us these various temptations in various forms. Even in bhakti, she will give us various temptations in different, she'll take different forms in the temple, in the bhakti also. So Maya tries that. It is Krishna's energy, so we can imagine Krishna is so powerful, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how powerful Maya would be, which is his energy. But we should also realize that we are also part and parcel of Krishna, and we should actually win this battle. And we should not be tricked easily by Maya. We should bring our minds back to the lotus feet of the Lord. Hare Krishna. With that, I will stop. I've exceeded my time already. If there is any question, realization, or thoughts, or if there are any corrections, please unmute yourselves. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Silence. So I assume that I hope devotees are not asleep and they listened something. But thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to hearing from you soon. Hare Krishna. With that, we will end today's session then, if there's no questions. Hari Bol. Vancha kalpatarubhya
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
Vaishnavebhyo namo
नमो
namaha.
नमः
Ananta Koti
वैष्णवेभ्यो
Vaishnavrinda ki
जय
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji. Beautiful
God
class.
bless.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.